It. The UN Security Council has unanimously backed a resolution to disarm Syria of its chemical weapons. The vote is widely seen as a major breakthrough as it ends a 2.5-year diplomatic standoff. For more on this, we can now cross live to RT's Marina Portnaya, who is in New York for us. Marina, you've been following this story. What can you tell us about this resolution?
Well, this legally binding UN Security Council resolution requires, first and foremost, the verification and destruction of Syria's chemical weapons stockpiles. It also calls for the convening of the Geneva II peace talks, and it endorses the establishment of a transitional governing body in Syria with full executive powers. What's interesting and very important to underscore here is that this resolution does not call for and does not allow for any immediate use of force if either the Syrian government or the Syrian opposition is found to not be complying with this resolution. Now, the immediate use of force is something that the United States and France were insisting on. They wanted this resolution to have a Chapter 7 clause in it, and it doesn't. And Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, actually, while addressing the Security Council, outlined how the international community would legally have to respond in the event that one side in Syria were to be found not complying with what the Security Council is asking those members in Syria to do. Take a listen.
All parties to the Syrian conflict's actions. The resolution does not fall under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter and does not allow for any automatic use of coercive measures of enforcement. It reaffirms the agreement which was reached at the Russian-American meeting in Geneva regarding the fact that violations of its requirements, as well as the use of chemical weapons by anyone, will have to be carefully investigated by the Security Council of the United Nations, which will stand ready to take action under Chapter 7 of the Charter, quite clearly. Actions which are commensurate with the violations, which will have to be proven by 100%.
Russia's foreign minister also went on to say that the Syrian government, as well as the Syrian opposition, are both obligated to fulfill what is asked of them in this Security Council resolution.
The responsibility for implementing this resolution lies not only with the government of Syria. Pursuant to the demands of the Security Council, the international experts will also have to enjoy the cooperation of the Syrian opposition.
Now, this clearly is a huge breakthrough for the international community. We have to remember that there's been essentially a deadlock within the Security Council ever since the Syrian crisis began. And after a lot of bilateral meetings, a lot of discussions behind closed doors, particularly between the United States and Russia, we now see that there's a consensus and a breakthrough and a binding agreement that has been adopted unanimously by the Security Council. And this adoption came after the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons approved the Russia-U.S. brokered agreement on Syria's chemical weapons. Now, that agreement, came just as the United States was planning on unilaterally military striking the Syrian targets, and that was just diverted last minute once U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, in an offhand remark, said if Syria gave up its chemical weapons stockpile, the military strikes could be averted, and then Russia jumped on those statements and made the deal happen. So this not only marks the first time that we see the UN Security Council have a binding agreement on Syria, but it's the first time as well that the Security Council formally endorsed a plan for a political transition in Syria, and also agreed on an international conference that transition was agreed on as in an international conference in Geneva back in 2012. Now, the first set of recommendations on the role of the UN in eliminating the chemical weapons stockpile in Syria is due to come within 10 days. And then every month, the Security Council will receive reports on the implementation of Syria's chemical weapons resolution. But at the end of the day, Syria only has till the middle of 2014 to clear itself of all its chemical weapons stockpile. That was the deal. That's what the United States said from the very beginning, that Syria would have till the middle of 2014. And so there's a lot of work to be done in a very short amount of time, but clearly it's going to be done with the backing of the UN Security Council.
All right, RT's Marina Portnaya in New York. We know that now that the news is out, we will be hearing commentary, discussion on the logistics of how this is all going to play out, and we know that you'll be staying on top of that situation. Thanks for being with us here as this news breaks on RT. Now.